know you guys are mad at me. Now you're really going to be mad at me. We're doing a video about the top 3 religious philosophers. People ask me on the troll videos about atheists and even theologians. People ask me, like, where is your basis for getting this in philosophy? Where is any substance in regards to maybe the opposite side? So there's a lot of anti-religious philosophy. There's a lot of secular philosophy. There's a lot of what you would call humanist, down to earth philosophy. And so, even though there are religious apologists and there are religious philosophers, what are the 3 bets? What are the 3 top ones? And this is going to scare your pants off. I know it scared my pants off. So, it's no surprise they're all existentialists. I picked Carl Jaspers, Soren Kierkegaard, and, are you ready? Friedrich Nietzsche. What? No, come back. No, turn the video back on. I need the subscribers and the likes and the whatever else you get on social media. Here's the thing. I'm going to try to explain to you how weird this is. And by picking Nietzsche, I'm going to probably make a better case than I normally do that this channel is two-sided, because that's really what we're doing, bro. I can't take these classes anymore. Carl Jaspers, 1883 to 1969. I know, lived a long time. Known for 3 things. The limit situation, which is kind of what I say when I say people become philosophers when big things happen. And limit situation just means your worldview and your perspective changes when you're confronted with larger, what would be called life-changing events like that. Known for his 1913 book, General Psychopathology. He was a psychiatrist, and this book is one of the first that explores the subjective and not what would be called phenomenological experience of therapy. And that means, for example, instead of studying the actual pain that someone says they experience, you would study their subjective experience of pain, considering that as much of a factor. Everyone knows what that means. Third is he's thought of as a neo-Kantian. There's even a quote that said he was the first and last real Kantian. And I think this comes from the transcendental stuff and the experience that Kant gave us that's supposed to be pushing toward your vision into the noumenal. If you know Kant, you know what that means. Jasper's big thing was the transcendence of philosophers, which again is meta philosophy, the thing I'm always pretending to do. Not really as much with my students because they look at me like I'm crazy, which they already do. But you guys, meta philosophy is philosophy discussing itself. And in this particular case, it's the fact that it transcends beyond what we would normally call reason. And if it's really rooted in reason and facts and logic and even certain kinds of outcomes, then it's called science. Number 2, Soren Kierkegaard. A lot of people understand this one, not as much of a surprise, even though all 3 of these people got in trouble for their lack of theology. Jaspers attacked the organized church. Kierkegaard, of course, in his home country, attacked the organized church and got in all kinds of the hot water. Kierkegaard's famous for, of course, leap of faith, which kind of sounds just like a leap. And I'm sure he used all kinds of post-Kantian critical analysis to make that leap sound like something it wasn't. Now I'm sounding like I don't like Kierkegaard. It's not as much that I don't like him. I don't know as much about him, but he's known also for 3 things in addition to existentialism. When you read Jaspers, it says founder of existentialism. When you read Kierkegaard, it says founder of existentialism. When you read Nietzsche, same thing. Kierkegaard's known for the leap of faith, thing we just talked about, that to really get to truth, you have to make a leap. That leap is non-rational. Number 2, the existence of this concept of truth is truly subjective, the thing Nietzsche's blamed for. I don't think it's really true. And that philosophy is getting to those truths through a subjectivity rather than a pursuit of abstract truth through logic. Again, a kind of discussion about a scientific truth versus some kind of transcendental truth. Kierkegaard's also known for 3 stages. This is a little more practical than linear. This is that he believes people go through 3 stages in their life. Kind of sounds like a psychologist. The first one is the aesthetic or the pleasure stage. The second one is the ethical or the duty stage. And the third one is the religious or the commitment to God stage. And the last one, the one you came here for, the one you waited for to give me all those watch hours, to give me all that attention, is Nietzsche. So how can Nietzsche be religious if he was blatantly not religious? If, in fact, he invented atheism. And the first one is the God is dead phrase that he's famous for, that people probably most know him for. Again, I've said this so many times. It is a religious phrase, even though the case can be made that he's not saying that either version is good. So his point is the God is dead means that certainty is gone within our intellectual culture, within society as a whole, and this will result in nihilism. And what he meant was that the church in some way supported this upholding of the expectation of truth, if not the search. And so he was well aware that philosophers were sophists and talked in circles. And that's why he was a poet and an artist more than he was an analytic philosopher. Nietzsche, of course, is known for all these different things, and he is a little hard to pigeonhole and to put into some little, easy explanation, which is why someone might say he's religious, because you kind of make him anything. You can make him pro and anti-German at the same time, even though it's probably more anti-German. So the God is dead was this loss of meaning, which kind of begins this discussion of what he meant by, and again, this is what I'm saying. It doesn't mean he thinks the opposite is true, that we should have not gotten rid of some of these things. I think he's just pointing out the fact that getting rid of them could potentially lead to this existentialism. Again, founder of existentialism was really about what sounded like a religious duty to be fundamentally honest. And so a lot of people argue that this isn't religious, but his belief in the self and transcendence and life affirming qualities, as opposed to some of these things that undercut what we really naturally are. And you got to understand, he did believe that organized religion undercut these things. That's the whole point of the book, the genealogy. But the opposite, or not really the opposite, but this other path can also be true. And that is the same thing about matching a new kind of more articulate God concept with certainty, as opposed to the God is dead nihilism. Start to bring out a picture. I'm going to get to some of these quotes. His existentialism did really promote extreme honesty, life affirmation, and creation of meaning, which is kind of just what I explained, but that was a particular quote. The last little one, before I read this quote, that's my favorite. The last little one is a quote that I found, anonymous quote, that Nietzsche used religious language and imagery, and even said about thus spake Zarathustra, that was the fifth gospel. Now, again, he played with words and he played with ideas, but I do think that there's something in this that suggests a break, again, the Reformation fallacy between organized religion and not necessarily God in this case. We're talking about religion, not God, and a kind of certainty and transcendence, which could potentially be a search for truth that, especially today, even more so in the 19th century, is accompanied by something that sounds a little bit more like an expectation of a theologian rather than what's become of philosophy. So here's the quote I found, which I think is really interesting. And this was a person arguing this very thing academically. He said, again, anonymous, I suggest that Nietzsche can be viewed as a theist, but one who, with poignant irony, is reacting against mankind's false image of a God, Reformation fallacy, that fits our base purposes, our simple need, rather than the pervasive internal will to power. So the most I can say about that is just that this life affirmation, this individual kind of transcendence, which again circles back to the will to power, is a kind of potential religious claim as you separate it from organized religion and think about it as a kind of man is God, or the Superman is more like a God. And in fact, he had a lot of reverence for this idea of Superman. So I'm going to leave you with that. I was supposed to make a 5-minute video. I made a 10-minute video. Those are the three people. Go make a difference.